Hello. I promise you wouldn't have had to wait so much for a new video. I recently was at our local in-person global game jam site, and what a better way to blow off some steam if not a few games of Commander. I was about to show off what I could do with a card I recently included in one of my decks. No spoilers, you see it in my next deck. It was then that I realized my opponents didn't even know a card like that existed, which is fair, it was a quite unique effect, but then some conversation sparked, and from that I realized there are lots of weird mechanics and tiny intuitive rulings they didn't know, or they never encounter, or they did encounter but ruled out incorrectly. Hence why I thought it could be a fun idea to gather unintuitive rulings I found over the years and make a video about those, so maybe you too can find out something you didn't know or even some new synergies you can work with. Before you destroy me in the comment section, I did some research to verify all of this. I am not a judge, I haven't played Magic for 30 years, I am just a person that is overly obsessed with Magic and has a bad sense of humor. Except if we are playing a game together, in that case I am a small beam, please do not attack me. This is to say, if I get something wrong, just let me know in the comment, and I'll note the mistake. Without further ado, let's start with... Tombstone Stairwell, which I play in my Zelix deck, is a very old card. I think it's very well known now, the rules have changed since Mirage, and there are some card types and specifications that we don't use anymore, like Interrupt, Enchant Creature, Mono Artifact, and so on. So, Enchant World must be deprecated too, am I right? Actually, no. In today's Magic terms, Enchant World was turned into Ward Enchantment, where Ward is a card super type, much like Legendary. If you are thinking of the Legend rule, Ward has a similar rule, which is called Ward rule, which is similar, but it's more restrictive. Referencing rules 205 for F and 704 5K, if at any time 2 or more permanents with a Ward supertype coexist on the battlefield, all but the permanent which has had the supertype for the shortest time are put in the owner's graveyard as a state-based action. In other words, whenever a new Ward permanent enters the battlefield, all other Ward permanents must be removed, much like the fields in Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't worry though, the Ward supertype has been retired for ages, there are only 26 Ward enchantments and just a handful of them see actual play, with the most notable example beyond Tombstone Stairwell probably being Concordant Crossroads. Piggybacking on the previous example to talk again of something I play in my Zelix deck, let's talk about Unearth. Unearth is an activated ability that says, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. If it would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate it only as a sorcery. So, this ability is made of two parts. First off, a delayed trigger, which will exile the permanent at the next end step, and second, a replacement effect, exiling the permanent if it ever leaves the battlefield before the delayed trigger fires. This is supposed, of course, to prevent you from bouncing the creature to end or sacrifice it early to avoid the exile clause. With Unearth, you get one single extra use of the card, no more. But what if you flickered it? Imagine you unearthed the Corpse Connoisseur to entomb a creature card. Before the end step, you cast Cloud Shift, which will attempt to put the creature in exile, so the replacement effect will see it and do nothing. The creature is already going to exile, so there's nothing to replace here. After that, nothing of Unearth prevents the creature from coming back from exile. I want to emphasize the fact this is a replacement effect. So what Unearth does is take the text of Cloud Shift and replace exile with exile, which doesn't change anything in the end. So very nice, very cool, the Connoisseur goes to exile and comes back. Would you look at that, the Connoisseur on the battlefield is now a completely new object to the game with no memory of having been previously unearthed, so both the delay trigger and the replacement effect are now gone. And you get an extra ETB with that. This is a trick I can occasionally do in my Zelix deck as I mentioned, specifically involving Extractor Demon and Ghostly Flicker. Think about this if you ever happen to build a Cedrus deck. Since we are already talking about flickering, Leonin Arbiter is a creature card that doesn't allow you to search libraries, but any player may pay 2 to negate this effect every turn. Paying 2 is a special action. You can do it at any time you get priority, it doesn't use the stack, and it cannot be responded to. This is by itself interesting, but despite the name, nothing really special. Playing lands is another special action, for instance. Imagine this scenario though, I control a Leonin Arbiter and you pay the 2. You then proceed to cast Demonic Tutor, since you can now search the library. In response, I cast Cloud Shift and flicker the Leonin Arbiter. Can you search the library now? The answer is no, unless you pay another 2. This is because Leonin Arbiter is similar to the previous ruling, a new object with no memory of the 2 having already been paid. hence why it will require the tax again. So yes, you can flicker Leonin Arbiter to have your opponents pay 4 instead of 2 if they want to search their library. Have fun with that. I think at this point we all know that being a commander is a property of the cards you own in the command zone when the game begins. A token copy of a commander is not your commander and does not deal commander damage. Commander status is passed on to a muted stack if it includes a commander. I'm not going over the multiple rule headaches that mutate brings, let me know if you want a separate video on that. Something that you may not have thought about, maybe because you don't see it happen that often, is that a commander that has been put face down on the battlefield, whatever the reason, is still a commander. Whatever form it takes, a 2/2 nameless creature, a 2/2 Cyberman, a 2/2 horror, a forest, that non-token card on the battlefield will still be your commander and eventually deal commander damage. It's pretty straightforward, but there is a curious interaction that may happen. As you may know, you are not usually allowed to shuffle up your face-down creatures. Any player must be able to track which is which, at least knowing the order in which they got onto the battlefield. Unless I missed any other, there are 4 cards in all Magic that allow you to shuffle face-down permanents in order to conceal which is which. Well, bad news if your commander is among those cards. The fact that a commander is a property of the card, and that must be known at all times by all players. So, after shuffling, you must reveal which one of the face-down cards is your commander. No removal shell game for you, I'm sorry. You cast a Scornful Egotist face down for 3, so you now have a 2/2 nameless creature on your battlefield, which you can flip face up for 1 blue mana. You then proceed to cast True Polymorph to turn it into a copy of Stormcrow. What happens? You may be tempted to say that the 2/2 nameless creature becomes a Stormcrow, but that's not really what happens, and we have to thank the most infamous rules nightmare for newer players: layers. As you may or may not know, effects in Magic are applied in layers, and in a specific order. First, on layer 1, there are copy effects. Then, on layer 2, there are control changing effects. On layer 3, there are text changing effects. Then on layer 4, type changing effects. Layer 5, color changing effects. Layer 6, ability adding or removing effects. And finally, on layer 7, effects that affect power and toughness. Look at it as if the game went through all these layers in order each time you query the state of an object. So how does that apply to our face down case? Well, see, I kinda lied, because layer 1 is actually split in 2 sublayers, which are layer 1A and layer 1B. Copy and mutate effects are applied in layer 1A, while face down effects, like morph, manifest, and all the others, are applied in layer 1B. So, what's going on with your Egotist? Let's apply the layers in order. You want to know what this card is, so you apply layer 0, if we can call that, it's a Scornful Egotist. Then we apply layer 1A, the copy effect is applied, so it becomes a Stormcrow. Then comes layer 1B, and the game recognizes the card is actually face down and it's a 2/2 nameless colorless creature. And you know what? Now you can't even turn it face up for its morph cost, because whenever the game checks if the face up version of the creature has morph, it just sees a Stormcrow. So you need to eventually find a different method of turning it face up. This works the opposite way too, of course. If your Colossal Dreadmaw ended up face down due to Ixidron, you could make it become a copy of Scornful Egotist to give it morph and turn it face up. Not that becoming a vanilla 1/1 would be an upgrade anyway. But what if you instead wanted a face up creature to become a copy of a face down one? Could you copy its front face? Sadly, no. When True Polymorph sees the face down creature, it just sees a 2/2 nameless colorless creature to copy. The actual front face and its face down state are not copyable values in this case. Since we are already talking about layers, let's talk about power toughness switching. This is a well-known ruling, but a refresher is always good, since it was once relevant when I was playing Vadric, in which I included Inversion Invention. You see, the point is I lied twice earlier, because also layer 7 is split in 4 more sublayers, A to D. In layer 7A, characteristic defining abilities are applied. Then, in layer 7B, power and toughness setting effects are applied, which are effects that set this to a specific value. Then, in layer 7C, other power toughness setting effects are then applied, like buffs and counters. Finally, in layer 7D, power toughness switching is applied. As you can see, power and toughness are switched only at the end, which means you proceed with all the previous layers, then take the final result and switch the values. This can create fun interactions. Say I cast Inversion targeting Vadric, its power is now 2, increasing the discount on instant and sorcery spells. I then proceed to cast Lunar Frenzy for x equals 3. While normally one would expect Vajrik to become a 5-1 till the end of turn, what actually happens is that following layers, Vajrik starts as a 1-2, then it gets +3/+0 becoming a 4-2, then his power and toughness gets switched, leaving him as a 2-4. Yeah, it's not really worth it in this case, I know. That card is in the list for invention after all, but it can increase Vajrik's powers with inversion in a pinch. What? Am I stupid? Yes, but not for this statement. Let me present to you Reign of Gore, Rakdos enchantment from Dissension. Reign of Gore says, if a spell or ability will cause its controller to gain life, that player loses that much life instead. Pretty straightforward, healing becomes harmful. Got it. You attack with your Healer's Oak, connect and you gain 1 life? How did that happen? Let's take a closer look at Lifelink in the comprehensive rules. Rule 702.15a, Lifelink is a static ability. Rule 702.15b, damage dealt by a source with Lifelink causes that source controller, or its owner if it has no controller, to gain that much life, in addition to any other results that damage causes. So, technically, Lifelink is not an ability which gains you life, it's a static ability which instead modifies how damage from the source with Lifelink works. It's not even a replacement effect, it's something that can be only defined through the rules themselves. In the case under examination, Healer's Oak connects, combat damage is dealt, and Lifelink changes it to also gain you life. Combat damage is the source of life gain, and combat damage is neither a spell nor an ability, hence why Reign of Gore doesn't apply. There is actually a specific ruling for this case, in case you need to quickly reference it, but I just wanted to explain why is that. Let me emphasize this interaction with Lifelink happens only with combat damage. If you give Lifelink to Inferno Titan when it triggers while Reign of Gore is on the battlefield, it will make you lose life. This is because in this case, it's the triggered ability of Inferno Titan that gains you life thanks to Lifelink, which falls under the influence of Reign of Gore. Another case it's carded with the same wording as Vampiric Link. Despite that looking extremely similar to Lifelink, that is not Lifelink, but a triggered ability, therefore again interacting with Reign of Gore. Alright, this one is more widespread knowledge, though I occasionally still find some people don't know about this. Auras are a common type of enchantments these days, but they bring in some unique rulings once you think about it. Until Mutate came along, these were the only permanent spells that require a legal target to be cast and resolved. I emphasize the word target. This means that if an otherwise legal target gets Hexproof or Shroud, you won't be able to enchant it with the aura. There is a way to bypass this issue. Enter Rule 303.4f. If an aura entering the battlefield under a player's control by any means other than by resolving as an aura spell, and the effect putting it on the battlefield doesn't specify the object or player the aura will enchant, that player chooses what it will enchant as the aura enters the battlefield. The player must choose a legal object or player according to the aura's enchantability and any other applicable effects. Did you notice the word target in this ruling? If you flicker an aura, or you put it on the battlefield from your graveyard, or drop it from your hand without casting it, or whatever else, you will be prompted to choose a legal object to attach it to without targeting it. Magic is a very literal game, and Hexproof and Shroud specifically prevent the object with that ability from being targeted, not chosen. This means that your aura will then also be able to attach to your opponent's Invisible Stalker. For instance, this is the reason why Rarity Acid is a premium removal spell for decks that can flicker it, since it can both bypass Indestructible and Hexproof. I admit I wasn't really aware of this myself until all the discourse around the Jeweled Lotus ban, mostly because I never played Doubling Cube in any deck. Doubling Cube has the pretty unique effect of doubling the mana in your mana pool, but what happens if your mana has any restriction on its usage? Take, for example, cards that limit the creature types on which you can spend your mana, or the type of cards, or even the zone from you can cast them. Turns out, there's a precise ruling for this specific case, pretty straightforward too. Mana restrictions aren't copied. If you have 2 mana in your pool that can be only used to cast elementals, after doubling, you will have 4 mana in your pool, 2 with a restriction and 2 without. Funnily enough, this does make Jeweled Lotus playable in Legacy and Vintage, the only 2 formats in which it is legal, despite those formats not having commanders. Beware, this does not apply to effects like Horizon Stone. In that case, you are not adding new mana to your pool, but you're changing the type of the mana already in your pool, keeping the restrictions. This may seem a basic argument to most, but there are some interactions that do care about this fact and it is forgotten at times. Yes, the stack is an actual ordered game zone, much like your library, not just an ethereal structure used for spell order visualization. When you cast a spell, the card is moved to the stack. When the spell resolves, it goes to the battlefield if it's a permanent, or goes to your graveyard if it's not. I want to remark this: if the card is in your hand and you cast it, it first moves from your hand to the stack, then to whatever zone it must go to. Want an example of this being relevant? Flayer of the 8th Bone says that whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control from a graveyard, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Cool, cast Reanimate, Reanimate Colossal Dreadmaw, and deal 6 to anything. You will be tempted to add it to your Chainer Nightmare Adept list, and though I will not stop you because that's still a worth inclusion, let me point out the fact that the Flayer of the 8th One doesn't work with Chainer's effect. Yes, because Chainers allows you to cast a creature card from your graveyard, it doesn't reanimate it directly. Where a Reanimate takes the creature from the graveyard and moves it to the battlefield, Chainer will let you cast it, moving it first from the graveyard to the stack, then from the stack to the battlefield. As long as Flayer of the 8th Bond is concerned, that creature did not enter from the graveyard, but from the stack, therefore it will not trigger. There aren't many other such cases, but you can see that whenever the above interaction is intended to happen, it is also specified that the ability triggers also when casting a spell from the specified zone. The more you know. Thank you for watching this far. I surely hope you could learn something new from this video. Despite not being the highest authority on magic rules, I am a bit of a rules nerd and I love finding such intricacies. I actually appreciate the density of magic rules. Despite being overwhelming to a new player, they do leave very few cases badly covered. I mean, magic is technically Turing complete. You can literally build a deck that can simulate any computation that the Turing machine can. There is a great video from Kyle Hill on this subject. Give it a watch if you're interested, it's a great video. All in all, I am just glad that reading the card explains the card. Well, except Ozolith, and Reiner, and all the companions that didn't see a reprint, and the original printing of Oubliette, and full art Textless Omnat. Oh god, gonna make a video about those two, huh? Alright, can you watch my Floral Spasm while I'm gone writing it? Just let me know when it decides what to do, okay? Thank you!
Huh?
Hey! First off, thank you a lot for the overwhelming response to the previous video. I truly did not expect it, it was a real surprise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, if you will excuse my voice, I was sick for last week, my voice came back yesterday, and I can finally speak without spitting a lung. So, this video was really fun to make. It was really fun to gathering and researching all of these rules, unintuitive rulings, and all weird interaction, and then making animation and everything. It was pretty fun to make. So I made a selection of the rules I wanted to talk about. There are many more that I could talk about, and many more I probably haven't seen yet. So if you have any new rule, unintuitive rule you want to share, or that you want me to talk about, just drop them in the comment. And maybe, who knows, I'll make another video like this in the future. Okay, thanks, bye. Am I advocating for Grim Servant based on a single deck I own? Absolutely not, who do you think you are listening to? I am advocating for Grim Servant based on 2 decks I own. Generally, the fact that it's a creature in a creatures based deck is great. It can attack, block, die, be reanimated, there are so many possibilities. And in addition to that, Grim Tutor won't make me a 1/1 horror windmill, while Grim Servant will.